So my first piece of advice is to go out and meet people, to research who else is kind of doing interesting and relevant things in your field, and to kind of put yourself in a position where you can meet them and talk to them, whether it be finding someone on the internet and following them on Twitter and direct messaging them, emailing them, following their blog, or going to events like, for example, the British Council's Young Creative Entrepreneur events, and meeting other people who maybe are not necessarily involved in music or involved in theatre or involved in whichever art form you're involved in, but just creative entrepreneurs across the board. So my piece of advice is to just go out and meet as many people who are relevant to you as possible.
Networking, it's never a straight line from point A to point B. So even though that some contact might not be useful right now for you, you know, it's important to keep at it, and maybe 1 out of 20 meetings I have result in anything like business.
Another piece of advice is to not be afraid of asking people when you kind of need some help. And that might be, from my point of view, organising events, to ask somebody to come along and speak at an event. And that could be anybody from somebody who runs a small DIY record label to somebody like Jarvis Cocker or David Byrne. My thing is to always ask, because the worst that can happen is people don't respond or people say no, but it's worth a shot. And generally, if you've got the right kind of ethos and you put it in the right way, people will say yes.
One thing that's very important is to invest yourself personally in the networking, and don't be afraid to use yourself and stand behind what you say, and strike up friendships. I think exchanging favors is important. I think it's important to not be afraid to ask for help or for a connection. People might say no, but I think generally people want to help, and likewise when people ask you, help them out. That also makes it's a little bond that might be useful in the future.
Another piece of advice is to work really hard. And I know it kind of sounds really obvious, but I think if you want to get far in what you're doing and stand out, there's always going to be a whole bunch of other people who are doing the same thing. And so I think in order to succeed, you've got to be prepared to make sacrifices, but also perhaps be prepared to not earn very much money from what you're doing for a really long time, you know? And I think that if you've got that determination and drive, then that will give you the edge, and that will make you successful. And it's not going to maybe happen over 1 or 2 years. It might be 10 years, you know, but then you will have the reward of being successful in your industry.